what excites you the most about the future of competitive cubing?
We keep getting faster. Like, where's the where's the barrier?
452! We're going to a winner-take-all fifth set! The USA's moving on to the finals!
Oh my God.
What song from the United States? They move on to the finals!
Goodness, Luke.
Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Michael Rosencrans. I'm so glad to have you along, and welcome back to another episode of Speedcuber Spotlight. As always, I want to say a big thank you, of course, to all your support on the series. It really means a lot. I have a lot of fun doing these interviews, and seeing all the feedback and comments brings a smile to my face. So again, thank you very, very much. And just like as always, we have another special guest for you here today. He's actually a member of the appeals committee. He's also a delegate and just a great ambassador for the community. We're talking to Glenn Koster. Glenn, how are you?
Hello.
So glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. This has been a great series. I've seen some of the interviews that have been done, so I'm in good company.
Well, we're super excited to have you along here, and we're super excited to get to know a little bit more about you, your upbringing, and tie that connection into the cubing community. So I'm really excited to do this. Absolutely. So before we get started, I'm going to pass the baton briefly to Glenn to sort of have him give a little elevator pitch of who he is and what he is in the community and what in the world he's up to these days.
Okay, so I guess I'm more of a all-around cubing enthusiast, but I've gotten into cubing and a lot of different facets of it. But I'm just this community has been great. So I'm a senior senior cuber. I also do a YouTube channel, like you said, delegate, appeals committee, all that sort of stuff. So that's me.
And correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube channel Glenn's Cubing Corner?
That's it.
I was going to say, something popped up in my recommended the other day, and I'm just like, no way. I think this is the same Glenn I'm going to be talking to in just a matter of time.
It is, yeah.
Perfect. I love that. That's awesome. So we'll get to talking about that a little bit more, but let's start out with your upbringing. So starting out, what was life like growing up in the South before moving to Kentucky in 2016?
Hot, but no, but vastly different, right? So I grew up mainly in the 80s and 90s, and it was a completely different world back then, right? But grew up in Houston, so I'd spend the year in Houston, and then in the summers we'd go out into the country where my aunt lived and spend the summer out there. So it was a lot of fun.
Good. Where in the country was your aunt from?
Oh, from Texas. So all of our family
From
is
Texas.
from Texas and Louisiana. So all of that area down there.
Good. Southern United States. So what was sort of that shift like for you, if any, from the South to the Midwest?
It was interesting. I think if I had to pick any other city, Louisville, Kentucky was a good one because it mirrors Austin, Texas a lot. So there were elements of it that felt like home when we moved up here. So yeah, it was a big transition. I think more so the weather. It's really cold up here, but yeah, the people are fantastic in both places though.
I love it. I second that it's very cold. I'm born and raised in the Midwest, born and raised in Michigan, so the winters, it's like, yeah, I second your emotion on that for sure. Absolutely. What were some of your favorite activities to do in Texas?
So, oh man, over the years, I've done a lot, right? So when I was in high school, I was heavily involved in robotics and computer programming, that sort of thing. Then I, kind of had other hobbies as time went on. I was a long distance cyclist for a couple of years there. A ham radio when I was in Texas. I did a lot of ham radio stuff. I didn't really get into cubing till the Kentucky years. Here, after I moved up here in 2016, but yeah, so Texas. I think the biggest difference between the two is out here in Kentucky, I can drive 8 hours and I'm in 11 different states, right?
Mm-hmm.
Texas, I drive 8 hours, I'm still in Texas. It's
It's just that big.
yeah, it is amazing.
Awesome. I love that. What drew you to cycling years ago? Do you still do it?
I still do it, not like I did, but I still do it. It was something that I picked up in my 30s,
Hmm.
and just needed something for a little bit more exercise, and it fit the bill. So there's a big cycling scene in Texas, right, between Houston, Austin, all of that. In fact, they even have a ride every year, the MS 150, that goes from Houston to Austin. So I've done that a number of times too over the years. So that's been fun.
Okay. And you mentioned something about, was it ham radio?
Yeah, amateur radio. So ham radio. Yeah. So basically Morse code, all that type of stuff. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So there's a there's also a big contingent of ham radio operators out around Texas A&M, College Station, in the area that we were living. So yeah.
So that would have been the handheld transceivers then.
Yes, handheld, and then the ones we mounted to our house and our cars, and yeah, all that. So
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's awesome. I mean, being in radio full time myself, I'm just like, hey, that's cool. That's cool. I love that. Were you drawn at all to puzzles or problem solving or competition even before you started cubing?
competition, absolutely. Puzzles, yes. In fact, the first time I saw a Rubik's cube was in '87, and then I couldn't figure it out, and so eventually, my parents got me a book on how to solve it, and it was one of those things. It's like, okay, once I got below 5 minutes for a solve, I was like, okay, I'm done. This is boring, whatever, right? And then I forgot about it for more than 30 years. But
Oh wow.
then you lost all that knowledge. But when I was a kid, it was like, okay, I could tell people I did it, but there wasn't competitions or anything else back then for cubing. The cubing community was very, very small. It was more like you got a book from your library and went and solved. In fact, this was the book that I learned to solve from way back in
Wow.
'87. So this print is from '81, but yeah, that was
Mm.
that was the book that taught me how to solve the cube back then. Um, and then it wasn't until COVID that I got back into cubing.
Yeah, it really seems like the people I've talked to, just really that pandemic just sort of was that period of just like, okay, we're quarantined, so let's relearn this, you know?
Well, it was interesting because sure, we were quarantined and all that, and then the Netflix show came out at the same time period, the Speedcubers, right? And
Yes.
so that was really interesting to see, but it wasn't until I actually had COVID, and then afterwards, I had this lingering brain fog that I really couldn't get rid of.
Mm.
And so one of the things I was trying was more mental activities, and chess and cubing happened to be two of them at the time. So I didn't have a cube at the time, so I just popped open the YouTube, see what I could see, and found a J perm, and then ordered a cube online, and kind of went from there.
Good. Yeah, just kind of went from there. And I love that you brought that book up. That was from 81. So, I mean, that was just around the time of where the cubing craze really started to kick off. Because, I mean, it made its worldwide debut, I think it was in 1980. It actually made its debut in London. So, I mean, you were around for pretty much the craze of it. So, what was that experience like going through sort of the craze of the Rubik's Cube?
It it was interesting because back then so many people had one, but they didn't know how to solve it. So you had the people that had just opened it and they were like, no, don't touch it. We're not going to be able to fix it. And then you had the other people was like, it's already scrambled. We're never going to be able to solve it. And you had very few people that actually could solve it. And the ones that could, they were like the savants. We were like, this is great. And the people I knew that knew how to solve a cube back in the 80s, it was like a 8-10 minute solve, right? And that was fast. We were all in awe. And nowadays, you can go into just about any town and there's some kid that can solve it in 20 seconds. So it's vastly different from that. And I think just I think having competitions, having the internet, online resources to learn how to do it really helped cubing in this era versus the 80s.
Especially with the more people just dropping knowledge, it seems like left and right, and just putting stuff all over the internet. It's just like, oh, you can look up how to solve a Rubik's Cube now on the internet. There's an in-depth tutorial now.
Many. It doesn't matter
Yes.
what learning style you want or even, what method you want to use. It's all there.
Absolutely. So you mentioned picking up the Rubik's Cube in 87, then forgetting about it for quite a number of years. So at what point for you did you realize that the Rubik's Cube could actually be, hey, this could be more than just a hobby?
So I think that actually happened slowly, right? So I started learning how to solve the cube from the tutorial during COVID. Started getting pretty good at it. I'm like, okay, when I was a kid, I could do it in 5 minutes. I'm at 2 minutes. Great. What else can I do? And then, so I started looking for more local resources. Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky has a huge, cubing scene. So a lot of different cubing clubs and everything else. And so, I said, okay, let me see what this is all about. And then there was no competition. So I was like, oh, okay. So there's nothing. Everything was closed down. And then when I had, some notifications and stuff about cubing online, so I'd get little pings and it was like, hey, competitions are starting back up. I'm like, okay, I'll go see what this is like. At least talk to other cubers. Let me sign up. I don't know if I'm gonna be any good, but we'll see, right? So I didn't really have much hopes of anything going into that first competition, but my wife encouraged me. She's like, "Yeah, go find your people." So with ham radio in Texas, I had a group of people that was my core, right? And then so we came up here to Kentucky, and I kind of missed having that group, having that clique of people that had the common interest. So I'm like, okay, maybe this can be that. I don't know. We'll see. But I didn't know. And then my first competition, it was the very, very beginning of 2022. It was like, I don't know, like January 2nd or something like that. And I was like, here, let me just go to this competition. That was the most electric competition I could have ever gone to. And then I had to remember afterwards that they're not all like that. You don't get a national record and a world record all in your first comp, right? So
Oh my gosh.
it was and at that time I hadn't heard of the Pyraminx, right? I was 3x3 cube. This is great. This is what we're going for. And then I get there and both of those records were set in Pyraminx. Like, Harsha got under a second on that one. Like, you blink, you miss it. It's crazy. But I think that's where I kind of got hooked. It was, the competition was electric, but the community was so welcoming, right? It was, I walked in there not really knowing what I'm doing, and I walked out of there with a lot of friends, a lot of resources. In fact, one of my buddies I still talk to, Eric. That's the competition I met him at too. So it was, I walked out of there with a community, and that I think is what kind of hooked me. Is I found my people. Am I, the 10-second Speedcuber? No, and I probably will never be, right? But I found people that had similar interests, and that just kind of sparked everything. And then, it was 3x3, and then okay, let's check out what's this 2x2, and then, well, I get this pyramid thing. I saw them solve it. He did it in a second. Can't be that hard, right? Well, yeah, it takes a while, but so it grew, on and on from that point.
No, that's awesome. I love that. So coming out of your first competition, you got a new friend group that you're going with. And how did your family and, did that core four at the time that you discussed in Texas, how did they take to your interest of solving the Rubik's Cubes?
Yeah, so I think they thought it was okay. It was neat. It was, not anything for them, but they supported it. My wife is absolutely supported it. So it I think we're now to the point where they're kind of like, there's another cube in the mail. Really? Another cube? Do you need another cube? But back then it was, I think it was a lot more excitement. And then after they solve it for a couple hundred times, it was okay. It's old hat.
Absolutely. I love that. So starting Glenn's Cubing Corner, when did that sort of start? When you were coming back into competitions?
So no, actually. So
Mm,
I mean, yes and no, but inadvertently. So
mm,
originally it was just a personal channel, right? I uploaded just whatever I wanted. It was actually more originally to share little videos and stuff I was doing with family in Texas, right? It was easier to shoot something on my cell phone, upload it to my personal channel, like give them the link, and instead of trying to email them the video, and they could see it, right? And all those early videos, I took all of those down after I decided to turn it into a cubing thing. But
mm.
originally that's what I used it for. So the channel has been there for a lot longer than I've actually done stuff with it, right? And then it was, um, I'm a senior cuber, so I'm over 40, and there's a whole senior cubing community, Facebook groups. I mean, they have a weekly competition amongst themselves and everything. And so you have to upload these videos to the competition. So originally that's kind of what I started using the channel for. Okay, I'm going to put some of these solves into the YouTube channel and upload it to these competitions. Um, and then I was like, okay, this is nice. I like it. Oh, let me solve a few solves for people back home. And then it was, oh, I got this tiny 1 centimeter cube. Let me solve this and show people and see what people like. And it was just little one-offs, but I still wasn't wanting to do anything with it. And then, Speedcube Shop has this yearly advent calendar thing, right? And so you get a bunch of cubes, all through December. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I didn't see anyone making any videos about it. And I'm like, this would be really cool to share with people. So then it was like 2024. I'm like, all right, let me just make these into videos, and that would be it. I won't do anything else. I just wanted to share this because I'm excited about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And, oh, okay, that was a lot of work. So um, I also didn't know back then that it's better to film all this stuff in advance. So that was
Mm-hmm.
very hectic December, because I'm literally trying to, you know, open them and solve them in the morning and upload it. And so, like in that first year, there was a lot of dual videos where it was the morning video. I couldn't get that one solved, and then in the evening I finally did and posted another video. But so those were kind of, all over the place. And then I was like, okay, that just wore me out. It was a lot of work. I'm not touching this YouTube thing again. This was stupid. Um, until the next year. and, and then it was like, okay, maybe I want to do this again. But by that, uh, Eric, who is his channel is Solver 5K on YouTube. He was doing YouTube and stuff already by then, so he was giving me some pointers and stuff, and so got the box in 2025 and did it a lot sooner than December, right? And started doing them a lot better. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and so I was like, okay, let me just try a few little things. Let me do, I don't know, maybe one a month, and see what happens after that. And I did a video for January 1st, right? And it was about resolutions and a new cube, and then this calendar cube, the 7x7 tri-box had come out,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
so I made that part of my resolution video, but that, like, no one had really had videos on that cube yet. So
Mm.
that video exploded out of nowhere, like completely caught me off guard. I went from, I don't know, 600-700 views to like 30,000 views in that video. I'm like, what? Where
Oh
is
my
this?
gosh.
Where is this coming from? And
Wow.
I then I got excited, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, now I want to do this. So it was really January of this year with YouTube, that I really got hooked and said, yes, I want to do this. And so then I made a commitment to do every other week, and I think I've missed that once so far, but it's a lot of work. And so I'm currently in the process of learning how to edit and try to make better videos. I got better lighting now, better microphone, but it's a lot. So it's a lot of piecemeal stuff, and I'm actually still learning how to do it. So and I'm still trying to figure out where my channel is, right? So
Mm.
there's a lot of videos where I have solving different cubes, and then I have different videos of me solving, and then I've got an 8x video out there, and I'm gonna do like a 9x9 10, and all the way up to the 21x21. But
Wow.
but I don't know yet long term where my channel or my niche is going to be, right? I actually didn't expect this to happen like this, and I'm not getting 30,000 views a video anymore. It's more like 1,000, which I'm happy with. Don't get me wrong, but
Sure.
it's growth. There's a lot more to this YouTube thing than I realized when I got into it, and so I'm still in that growing stage.
Awesome. And it sounds like it's going great for you. I mean, shoot, I'd be excited from a video exploding to 30,000 views overnight. This is crazy.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I know you touched on Gem City 2022 as your first competition, but
Yes.
even before that, how did you learn about official competitions?
So a bit of vanity, actually. So because I wanted to be able to prove to people, okay, I know how to solve the cube. How do you prove it? Is there a certification process? That's actually where it started, right? Because
Mm.
I I've got this weird thing, and I I've had so many hobbies over the years, and like, for me, I haven't learned a hobby till it's certified somewhere.
Mm.
So when I years ago, when I picked up sport picking, lock picking for sport, there's certifications for that. And then, you know, getting into electronics repair, great. I got certifications for that, and there's competitions and stuff for that. So it actually just started with an internet search of, how can I get certified that I have solved the cube? And then, oh, there's this thing called the World Cube Association. They're the official record keepers. So great. I have to go to a competition, and I have to get a solve in order to be official. Okay, well, we can do that. That's actually how it started. Like, that's how I found out about the
Mm.
competitions, was just, how do I prove to people that I can do this?
Good. And that's awesome. And hey, you prove that you can do this regardless of time.
Absolutely.
I love it, Glenn. Let's keep on rolling here. So, keeping on your focus in the cubing community. So, how did it shift for you, or evolve, I should say, from competitor to organizer and to now eventually a delegate?
Yeah. So um, when I started going to competitions, I was traveling to some competitions, and there is an occasional competition more locally, but they didn't have either they didn't have the events I was looking for, or they weren't in quite the distance range I wanted. So my buddy Eric and I were talking. We're like, hey, I bet we could put our own on. It can't be that hard, right? Let's organize our own comp. Okay, that first one was a steep learning curve. Um, we were very naive getting into, oh, shit, we can just put on a competition. They look easy. It was vastly different. So Flex and Lex was our first, competition that we organized.
I
And
think that
that
was in
was
2023, correct?
that. Yes, correct. And so that was a lot of fun. So it started off with just organizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we did it again. But when that competition was organized, I started looking at what are some other ways that I can give back to the community. I mean, at that time, our youngest, child had just moved out of the house, so I had a lot of free time, all of a sudden. And what else can I do? What else can I give back to the community? And that's when I saw the petition for at the time it was the disciplinary committee, the WDC. They are now the integrity committee. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, okay, here's a committee of volunteers. This is one way in which I can give back to the community as well as organizing competitions. And that actually eventually led into delegating, because as I'm reviewing all these cases globally of incidents and stuff, one of the things I realized is I don't understand fully what the delegates are going through. I don't understand the delegate aspect of that. I don't have that experience. Most of the other people on the committee did, right, or had previously been. So at the beginning, it was okay. Well, let me see about, is there room for me to be a delegate and learn with this? And at the time, there wasn't, and that was okay. That our region had a lot of delegates, so we had a lot of really good delegates. So I just kept learning more and more within the integrity committee, picking up more stuff. So we organized, another comp, and then eventually there was an opening up for a trainee delegate. So I put my name in the hat, and we kind of went from there. So that's kind of how I got into being a trainee delegate, and now I'm a junior delegate. So I was recently promoted up from there. But it's been interesting, and the more I dig into it, the more hooked I become, and the more involved I want to become. So in all aspects of the cubing community, and where I'm at in the Midwest, we have a lot of good delegates, but we also have the MCA, right, the Midwest Cubing Association here in this area, and so that's really big. It's a really good group. So I started getting involved more in that as well, right? And volunteering at different comps, learning different things. Volunteered at a regional, and then I got to go to Worlds Seattle as a competitor, and I volunteered during that as well. So that was different, being a volunteer at such a huge competition. And so I've kind of grown in my knowledge, and then I wanted to become even more involved. So recently, I also became a board member with the MCA. So that has been, that just started in May. So that's brand new, but that's a whole other dimension. It's been added to stuff. And then I was with the integrity committee for about 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and decided to make a switch to the appeals committee. So one of the requirements for the appeals committee is that you be on one of the other committees for at least a year. Um, and so I made that transition in March of this year to the appeals committee. So I've kind of got my hands in quite a few places.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very involved, though. What do you think some responsibilities are in terms of a delegate that people or competitors don't really get to see or don't think about often?
Um, a big part of it is coaching, especially coaching new organizers, right? So,
Mm.
um, you know, before you can have a competition, you got to find a delegate. And a lot of times, some of the newer organizers don't know what they're getting into. And so, as a delegate, you're having to help walk them through part of that process to ensure that the competition, goes off without a hitch, and that everything has been thought of and the budget is done properly and all that stuff. I think that's probably the biggest part that people don't realize. And then, also the delegate's job isn't just the day of the comp. Right? There's a lot of stuff leading up to it, and then even afterwards with all the scorecards and results and all that stuff. It's
Hmm.
there's a lot more than just the competition itself.
Absolutely. So, in your time as a delegate, what would you say a typical weekend looks like from your perspective?
uh, it depends on the comp, whether it's little or small. But like uh, yeah, if it's a small comp, it's a couple days leading up to it. Figuring out the groups and everything, packing your equipment, packing the car, making sure you have everything. You if it depending on how far you got to travel, usually you're going the day before, maybe staying over at a hotel and stuff, and then getting up and setting up, and then you. That's the other thing people don't realize is people can go home, whenever they're done with the event, or they can go home when the event's over, like after the awards and stuff. And the delegates and organizers are the ones that are still there picking up the venue and repacking all the equipment. And so it's a lot of long days when you have a comp. And then after all of that, you got to drive home. So the weekends where I have comps are tiring, right? And
Mm-hmm.
June has got a lot of comps, but June is different because we're in championship season, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
we have, this coming weekend is GLC, so I'm fixing to
Mm-hmm.
pack everything up and go to Fort Wayne for several days, and then, not even a month later, turn around going to NAC, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's that's what 5 days, 4 days, something like that. It's those are long. So these, and then in between there, I have a lot of little comps too. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's interesting, the next month or so. But usually it's about two competitions, or it's been averaging about two competitions a month or so, um, so far. So I usually get a weekend break in there somewhere.
Good. As long as you get a break in there somewhere, right? Absolutely. So you mentioned that one of the challenges in your delegate work is training new delegates. What do you think some other
No,
challenges are?
organizers, new
Or
organizers.
organizers, my apologies.
Yeah, I'm the one learning as a delegate. So
Yes, my apologies.
other other delegates are helping me. But no, what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. In addition to training other organizers, there's the second chance to get it right there. Um, what do you think some other challenges are that people may not see?
I I think the other thing that just about every delegate I think is passionate for is growing the sport, right? How do we reach more people? So as a delegate, you also feel like you're always an ambassador for for speed cubing. So um, Now, I carry, I always have my cube with me, but I always also carry several pre-made cheaper cubes that I can hand out. So if I'm, cubing in a restaurant or in a park or something, and someone, asks questions, um, there's also this drive to help them and help them figure it out and learn it, and then give them a cube and let them explore on their own, right? And then um, also in my workplace, people know that I'm the cubing guy. So there's been 4 people so far that have learned to cube in my office place because I sat them down during lunch and explained how to do it. But so yeah, I I think the hardest challenge sometimes is knowing where to reach people or how to reach more people, because it would be great if we could get more newcomers into the competitions, if we could get more people to the competitions that hadn't seen it before. um, that I think that is a challenge that all delegates really feel and face.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's the big mission, just trying to grow the sport of cubing. And I mean, shoot, it may take a village, but I mean, it's going to happen one day eventually, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So let's move on here. So you're a part of the appeals committee as well. You're a senior member. So can you explain the committee's purpose?
Yes. So there's going to be decisions that are made by the integrity committee, and there's going to be decisions that are going to be made by the regulations committee. And we're all volunteers, right? So, we all have our own personalities, quirks, everything else. And we're not always going to get everything right. Some of this is interpretation. Some of this is, how someone may feel it should go. So um, oftentimes the decisions are absolutely valid and correct, but sometimes people want to make sure, right? Maybe they feel like the decision wasn't fair, or maybe they feel like there was something that wasn't considered, right? So the appeals committee is an avenue that they can go to and kind of plead your case. Like, okay, this is why I feel this isn't right. Um, and that's where we come in, right? So then we get the reports and the investigative notes, and we review the investigation and come to the determination of, is there grounds for an appeal? Was the investigation done properly or was it not? And so, that's kind of who we are as the appeals committee. And the regulation committee, integrity committee are awesome at what they do. And so, but we're there just as a safety valve, so to speak, just to make sure everything was done to par.
Good. Absolutely. What kind of situations or what types of situations usually make your way to you guys at the appeals committee?
Oh man, lots of different things. It could be cheating, but someone doesn't feel like they really cheated, right? It could be um, a decision made by the regulations committee. Maybe they, um, you know, said, a solve for whatever particular reason wasn't valid, so that solve was taken away. Uh, you know, those types of things are appeals that we would get. Um, when stuff comes, sometimes people will get banned for actions or stuff that they've done. They'll get banned from the integrity committee, and we're the committee that they can also appeal that to, right? Maybe they felt their ban is unjust, or maybe they felt it was too long. We're the committee that they can appeal to for that.
Yeah, for sure. And keeping on going on with the appeal stuff here. So, what do you think distinguishes a normal competition issue per se to one that becomes an appeal?
That's kind of hard to answer, because
Hmm.
it's kind of funny. The the stuff that you think might become an appeal isn't. And I know that from my side on the integrity committee, we're like, oh, okay, we're about to tell this competitor this decision. This isn't going to go well. They're not going to take it well. And sometimes those are the cases where, like, you know what? Okay, I get it. This was fair. I'm going to move on. And we're like, okay. And then sometimes it's cases that you thought, okay, this is great. I we're just giving them a warning, kind of a slap on the wrist, letting them go on. And sometimes those are the cases that become the biggest appeals and stuff, because people go, how dare you, say I did something wrong or give me a warning. And it's really hard to guess, right? There are some cases that are bans. A lot of times people that get banned will automatically appeal those, just to have someone take another look at it. And then obviously I think the on the regulation side, either the bigger decisions, the decisions that disqualify results, especially if those results are really, really good, those type decisions will often get appealed. But sometimes you can't guess what's going to make someone appeal or not.
For sure. Absolutely. You hinted at it a little earlier, so I'd love to know, and I'd love you to tell our audience, what exactly happens when an appeal first arrives, like very first arrives to you?
Okay, so the first thing that we do is we let them know that we've received their appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ask for the reports and investigative notes. So we look into things. There's with an appeal, there's an appeal panel. It's made up of 3 people. So it's not just one person looking at an appeal. It will never be just one. So there's a panel of 3, that are looking into it. We review it, decide, how we're going to go. Is there grounds for an appeal? Is there not? And then we give that decision back to the competitor, whatever the case may be.
Good.
And
Absolutely.
then we also, we're also notifying the integrity committee or the regulations committee that there was an appeal. Obviously, we're having to ask for their notes, so they know there's an appeal. And then we're also letting them know the outcome as well.
Awesome. I love it. How do you ensure that in the committee all sides are represented fairly?
So I think a large part of that is who makes up the committee, right? It's very diverse background from everywhere in the globe, right? So, and that's true of the integrity committee too. I was with them for 2 years, but we have people from all over the world that serve on these committees, and so I think a large part of it is the makeup of it. The other part that helps with the appeals committee is every single person on that committee has at least a year experience in committees, right? So that is huge, because like when I first got to the integrity committee, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna change the world. This is fantastic, and it's nothing like you think, right? And there's no glamorous cases or anything like that. It's a lot of tedious work behind the scenes. It's a lot of hours reviewing this stuff, especially in the integrity committee, reviewing stuff, reaching out to competitors and witnesses and following up with questions and all that stuff. There's a lot of hours every week that people give into these committees.
I mean, oh, looks like it was turned off there. Absolutely. For sure. I think it's the first time I've ever happened that I forgot to push the button. There we go. It's the first time for everything, right?
I've done that a few times at work.
Gotta love it, for sure. And that's one of the misconceptions that you touched on. What do you think some other misconceptions are about how appeals are handled?
Um, I I think there's a huge misconception on, the fact that it's just one person looking at it, and obviously there's not. It is at least three. I don't think people always realize that the people on the appeals committee have experience and background in the committees that we're reviewing. So I think that's a big part of it too. And I sometimes think that people don't always realize that the appeals committee is completely separate from the other committees, right? And that's huge. So we're not beholden to anyone but the board, right? So we're not beholden to any of the other committees. So I think those are some of the things that people may not fully understand about the appeals process, and then also that um, it's not going to happen in a day, right? So,
Sure,
and
absolutely.
an appeal takes time. We're having to get, the reports and notes from the other committees, and we're volunteers ourselves, right? So we have lives and everything else. So things take time, especially if there's, questions that then have to be asked and reviewed. But so it it's a process, and sometimes it takes a while, especially if it's a difficult case with a lot of evidence or a lot of reports to read over. Some of that stuff can take a while.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Let's segue toward the discussion side of things. So you get a case, it gets to your desk, and you review all the information. What does the discussion process look like?
So I don't I don't know that we want to discuss a lot of some of the internal workings on um, how we have our discussions or what we do with our discussions,
Sure.
but the discussions are done within the three panel appeal. So
Good. Absolutely. And I respect that for sure. So, how do you think that the committee balances the written regulations in the rules committee with the unique circumstances that can pop up at any given time?
this is hard, and there are quite a few times where um, your heart may want to go one direction, but you can't. The regulations are what they are, and if we can't hold to the regulations, then what do we stand for? If people can't trust that the the records that we keep are solid, then they're going to lose faith in the WCA. So the regulations always win out, and that is really hard sometimes. Um, so there are a lot of times where even the community is like, "Oh, come on, how could you do that? I know it's what the regulation says, but can't you just change it this one instance?" And
Mm-hmm.
no, because if we change it for one person, then every other record, every other time that's been kept is meaningless. Because what if someone changes it for that? So that's a really hard line, but in the end, the regulations and the motions, because like the appeals committee was set up from a motion, right? So the the motions and the regulations, they are what they are, and they're irrefutable.
For sure. What do you think are some of the best qualities who make someone effective at evaluating appeals?
Um, well, you have to know your regulations. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely. But it, the I think all of the people on the team are very, very analytical, right? We're able to take in large amounts of information and make decisions upon it. Um, but you also have to be self-driven, right? So you don't, unlike work, you don't have someone there all the time going, "Hey, do this." You have to do it. Um, you have to manage your own time, and sometimes that's harder than not. But at the end of the day, you also have to remember that someone else out there is waiting on your decision. Someone is waiting on you to do the legwork, to review what you need to do to come to a decision. And so someone has to be a self-starter. Absolutely, they have to be analytical. They have to be keen on details. Um, you know, there's a lot of, sometimes some of these cases have a lot of testimony, a lot of video evidence in some cases, and other stuff to review. So you really have to be meticulous, so detail oriented also. But
No
I,
doubt.
th- I think above everything else, though, you really do have to have a love for the community. I think that's the number one trait I've seen in just about every person I've worked with, either in the integrity committee or the appeals committee, is they all love the community and they want to help it grow.
Good. That's the best thing. Absolutely. And let's take a look at the process of resolution, coming to a resolution. So again, without discussing confidential cases, of course, can you describe the process of resolving?
So in terms of an appeal, we're either going to decide that there, you know, is grounds for an appeal or there's not, right? And if there's not, we're going to tell them why. Here's why we have determined there's not grounds for an appeal. If there is grounds for an appeal, we're going to tell them, you know, yes, we're going to open this up further into an appeal, and then review. There'll be even more discussions and stuff that go on from there. But at the end, when it's all said and done, we're either going to uphold the decision or we're going to overturn the decision that was made by the committee, right? So whenever that happens, we're going to notify the committee and the person that submitted the appeal. This is what we have decided, and that decision is final.
For sure. What do you think the most important factors are when determining an outcome like that?
I think the most important thing is whether the decision was based on procedure and regulation. Was everything followed the way it should have been? Were was there something in the regulations that should have been considered but wasn't? What did it fall under? Was there some piece of evidence that existed that wasn't looked at or considered? So I think everything falls strongly on procedure and regulation, and at the end of the day, I think those are the biggest determining factors. Was the investigations done properly, and did it reach the correct outcome?
Absolutely, for sure. I think the biggest thing that you obviously want to take away from this whole appeals process is one word: transparency. So, what steps do you take to ensure transparency and overall trust in this appeals process?
So, absolutely. So, we our motions that put the appeals committee in place, those are public, right? So anyone can go look up the project. In fact, when I was in the integrity committee, if we once we issued a decision, we would even tell them, hey, here's the link to the appeals motion, and here's how you contact the appeals committee. So it starts at the beginning committees, right? So the transparency kind of starts there. Here's where it is. Here's the appeals process laid out in public view. You can go look for it for yourself. And then, here's how you can contact them. When it comes to us in the appeals committee, I think the biggest thing is being able to answer people's reasons for the appeal, right? Because when they appeal, they're always going to have a reason for the appeal. I don't think this was considered, or I think I was treated unfairly because of X, Y, or Z. And I think in our response, trying to address that as directly as we can. Hey, we reviewed this and we found that X, Y, and Z was properly considered, and the right outcome came about. Or um, we're we're upholding their decision, um, and here's why. Here's all the reasons why. Here's where you can find it in the regulations, especially if it's a decision from the regulation committee. Here's specifically where the regulation states this. Um, and I think being able to give people as much detail about the points that they raised, right? It's we're not simply going, hey, we're upholding their decision. We don't think they did anything wrong. Have a nice day. Um, it's being able to tick off and answer their points that they raised, and they may not agree with our answer. They may not even agree that we properly addressed their concerns, but at least we've answered every one of their points. And I think that goes a long way to build trust within the community.
Good, Glenn. I love that. Absolutely. So, overall, what have you learned through your work as both a delegate and an appeals committee member? What have you learned about leadership specifically?
There's a lot of different personalities within the cubing world,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of different backgrounds. I come from leadership in my day job, but I think one of the it's I don't think it's so much what I learned about leadership, but it's more about what I've learned about the people in the community, right? Especially the people that are heavily involved in the delegate work or in the committee work, or the people that are putting on the competitions. A lot of them are on the younger side. Speed cubing is a younger community, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of people in their teens and their 20s that are really stepping up and doing amazing things. And that is really great to see them grow and learn, and to see them, communicate with different people. But the there's just the immense background that people have. It all works because everybody wants it to work, and that's kind of the big drive. So yeah, it did. I think those are the biggest takeaways, especially where leadership is concerned, is that everyone has a mutual respect. Um, and so if you're always coming to everyone else you're dealing with from that point of respect, you're going to gain their respect, right? So it's actually fitting that the disciplinary committee renamed themselves to the integrity committee, right? The integrity is the one thing that nobody can take away from you, right? In your life, maybe you're going to lose your house, maybe you lose your car, maybe you may lose a girlfriend or boyfriend along the way, something like that. But the the one thing that no one can take from you is your integrity. As long as you are on the up and up, as long as you have proven yourself to be trustworthy, others will trust you in turn. And that's a cornerstone of leadership. And that's also the cornerstone you'll find in every committee within the WCA.
I love that, Glenn. That's awesome. Sort of wrapping things up here. So, looking to the future. So, what excites you the most about the future of competitive cubing?
We keep getting faster. Like, where's the where's the barrier, right? Um, it I I think it's awesome to see it. Now they're starting to teach it in schools, and people are starting to learn at a much younger age. It is like when I was a kid, it was just this thing that people knew, people did. Now is a full-on sport. Like if you ever hear some of Luke Greiser's YouTube videos and stuff, he always talks about having to eat like a champion, work out like a champion. He's always talking about the mental aspects
Mm-hmm.
of cubing, and that what you eat and stuff can play a huge part in that mental aspect. So we are starting to really go down that corridor of being a sport, and that's exciting, right? So, and with it, things are mentally changing. You have all these cubers now, especially the top cubers. They're now trying to find younger cubers and get them into it earlier and coach them along. Manny Robanaba is one that's really doing that right now, and so there's that's what excites me is it continues to grow, but as it's growing, the generation that is teaching the next ones, right? And that's actually kind of how I got back into cubing. The documentary, The Speedcubers, that was Max and Felix at the top of their game,
Mm-hmm.
and they were making it real. Their struggles, their emotions, the ups, the downs, it made it real for people. And when you make it real, you invite more people in. And we're just now, on that growth. So the that's what excites me the most is that people are getting involved in it at a much younger stage, but they're also, learning how to improve other aspects of their life that will improve their cubing. And then there's this whole other aspect of people also realizing they have to protect their sanity and protect their mentality. And, that's another huge aspect of it. Winning is not everything. And being able to enjoy the community and having a strong community that cubing is to be there for you and need them, that's another exciting aspect. So, yeah, we're just starting to grow. This is great.
It is. I mean, coverage is expanding. You're getting videos of people's solves left and right. I mean, shoot, forgive me for doing a shameless plug, but
Live
Speedcuber's
streaming.
Digest.
There
Live
you go.
streaming Speedcuber's Digest. We were so excited to launch that and bring sort of that cubing journalism side back to things, and that
Yeah,
was a lot of fun.
that's exciting. Every sport has their set of broadcasters, their publications, and now I honestly feel like we do too. And the more competitions have live feeds to them, more competitions have commentators now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really feels like a sport that a normal person can follow, even if you don't know anything about cubing. You're gonna have enough people there explaining it to you. You can follow along. So
Exactly. Absolutely. And personally, I just want to say a big thank you from all of us at Speedcubing TV for helping us jumpstart Speedcuber's Digest. I know you played a big role in that. So, I mean, again, we just thank you so much for your support on that. It means a lot.
not a problem. Thank you very much, Michael.
Absolutely. So, just wrapping things up here, just a couple more questions here for you, Glenn.
Sure.
Are there any areas, in your opinion, that you would like to see the WCA continue to grow or improve upon?
I think they are, right. So we now have an executive director that is
Mm-hmm.
it actually is an actual paid position that can oversee the day-to-day stuff, right? There was a huge need for that. We have that now. So we're starting to become more organized. We're starting to shift how that organization is devised. That's big for future growth, right? Where we now have, we're now starting to look more into bigger competitions, and we have committees looking into just that, right? So I think we're taking the right steps to get there. I think they are. I think they have realized that um, they needed to make some of these changes, and they are making the changes that they need to make. I there I think I don't think there's anything I would add to what's already been done. And look, there's probably a lot of people out there that have a ton of ideas of what they'd like to do different or how they could do things better. And I'm sure that's always going to be the case. But I think for now, the size we are, where we started from, and where the WCA is going, I think they're taking the right steps in the right direction.
No doubt, Glenn. Absolutely. One final question here for you. So after
Sure.
all your years in cubing, competitor, delegate, appeals committee member, what's the thing that keeps you the most passionate about the community today?
That there's always something different. People are always starting or are always breaking barriers, and not just in speed, right? So you have a whole group of cubers out there that just make art with the cube. You have all these content creators that are finding new ways to engage different audiences. Um, you know, that's that's awesome. That no matter what type, no matter what part of the cubing community you want to be a part of, there's there's something for you. There's a whole group of senior cubers for the older cubers. There's just a lot of community no matter what. So if speed cubing is not your thing and you want to design puzzles, great. There's a ton of people that just make and design puzzles, and that's there are people that have made hundreds of puzzles or more, and that's what they like to do. So there's always something.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn Koster, appeals committee member, delegate, competitor, and look, just a wonderful ambassador and volunteer for the community. Glenn, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day, Michael.
You as well.